journalists who objected when she had a party which is an annual party where they have an off-the-record session with senators, and she had it sponsored and she announced it before the party, and they objected that it cannot be sponsored because that means that a company will be writing according to what the company wants. That's how strict they are. I mean, there's lots of enough corruption in America, and I don't hold that up as an example, but I do hold their journalism as an example. There have been instances of corruption, but by and large there is today we've reached a stage, and Paranjoy has written about it, where historically he's written about how it all started, and it started with selling of editorial space in page 3 by Times of India. Now Vineet Jain has gone on record saying that my business is not the newspaper business.
News is not, I'm in the business of advertising.
I am in the business of advertising. Now if he's in the business of advertising, then do not advertise as a newspaper. Then don't call it Times of India, call it the Advertising of India. So you're fooling the people by, you're saying you're in the advertising business.
All right, fraud, you're calling it fraud, but then do we just keep coming back to the question of enforcement then? And is it...
No. It does not mean enforcement. It means that what has happened, like in Gandhiji's time, there was a certain kind of an Indian man who was created as an ideal. Today, the leadership today in politics and in business and everywhere else, the leadership, including in the media, all the bosses are creating the leadership, are not only demanding their journalists to go and make deals and to sell space, they are doing this, and that's what we need. We need to create a complete change of thinking and revolutionize the fact that you have to create a leadership that is honest, and that you're killing your own USP.
All right,
if people don't believe us, we won't be there.
Certainly, in an ideal world, a complete change, but at least in this instance, do you believe
honesty and ethics sound?
No, absolutely not.
And that's what it has become. It's become exotic.
I'd beg to disagree on that, but
it's normal. Please come back to it.
Ankita.
Absolutely normal, but in this case, do we need some sort of independent regulatory authority that would at least, look at a cross-section of cases?
Give me a couple of minutes. Give me a couple of minutes on this. NK is representing here the NBA, the News Broadcasters. Let's first print. We have a Press Council of India. It's a quasi-judicial body set up by an Act of Parliament with no powers. It has no powers to punish. It has only a power to admonish, to scold people. All right. Even a government department need not listen to what the advice given by the Press Council of India. Importantly, the Press Council is not just a toothless tiger. It's a toothless tiger that cannot growl. It cannot whimper. It cannot go beyond the print medium. Okay. Now let's come to the electronic medium. Right now, what's the regulatory authority for the electronic media? It's the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. You have a self-regulatory body of which NK Singh is a part, and in an ideal situation, self-regulation is the best form of regulation. But what do you do with the rogue elements? What do you do with the blackest of the black sheep within our media fraternity? What do you do? As of now, there's no regulatory authority. Yes, you have occasions where licenses have been suspended.
But even that's something the ministry does.
Correct. It's all Ministry of Information and Broadcasting using rather weak provisions of the cable rules.
Everything respond to that. You have this body which can de-recognize somebody, but what does de-recognition entail? The channel is still broadcasting at the end of the day.
Valid, and the answer that Paranjoy has given is equally valid. Recall, Paranjoy has just now said that there is a provision, it is a clear-cut violation of IPC 420, right? It means there is a provision. There is an extortion case, there is a provision in IPC. My point is there are 36 laws to enforce 8 restrictions that we have under Article 19(2). Why don't we invoke those laws and then grill them, then catch them? Where is the problem? You have laws. It is only the proper enforcement of those laws. If you do this, I think media will be completely bereft of all the
the demand for new laws. Again, we keep coming back to it.
Why do you want a separate body for that, and that to government appointed?
It's a bigger issue. The issue is the nexus between politics and the media. It's a mutually reinforcing and back scratching. Each love each other, each hate each other.
But you cannot live to know. You cannot live with each other. Class of Paranjoy, they are hell-bent to see that this regulatory body is brought into place.
That's because
they are hell-bent, because politicians are not very much favorable to us.
because of those rogue elements. We know what has happened in the case of Zee News and
I think there is a solution. Can't we strengthen the self-regulation concept? See, in India, this will be India is a relation-based society.
I've been thinking about this very hard, but I also think together we need an independent regulator, a constitutional authority, a constitutional authority set up which is independent of the government, independent of the media. It can be funded by the government. It should be of the status of the Controller and Auditor General or the Election Commission or the Supreme Court.
Does it come down, Madhu Trehan, then to the difference between an independent regulator and some sort of government body in a sense? Is that where this debate is going?
I don't think a government body will work. I think what Paranjoy suggested is excellent. It can be funded by the government, but has to be an independent body. Because I'm against regulation, but as things are going, and things are going from bad to worse, and people, what really upsets and shocks most journalists and me is that it's become not even an issue anymore. It's just a normal thing. I was interviewing an editor of a daily paper in Bombay, and she also teaches, and she told me that in her classes she tells her students that if you're an idealistic journalist, if you're an idealistic person, journalism is not the place for you. It is not. Now, I was told the opposite.
The sad truth of our times. I'd like to begin.
It's not a truth. It's a lie. It's only if you accept that it is corrupt and it has to be that way.
Narayan Sharma, let me bring you back in at this point. You know, the rate cards that you brought out, that your RTI query brought out, was in a sense for positive stories being told on behalf of the Chhattisgarh government, with a price tag put on every positive story that was there. But equally, are negative stories being suppressed? And is that perhaps an even scarier aspect of this entire paid news phenomenon?
जी, यहाँ पर क्या जो भी खबर दिखाना चाहते हैं उसका पेमेंट कर देते हैं, खबर का पेमेंट ले लीजिए, लेकिन ऐसी कोई खबर नहीं जानी चाहिए जो सरकार के खिलाफ हो, कहीं सरकार के जो है इमेज को खराब करती हो। और लगभग इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मीडिया, प्रिंट मीडिया, उसमें सभी लोग इन्वॉल्व हो गए हैं। और हमारे जो विजेंद्र कुमार जी हैं उनका ये कहना है कि जो सरकार के खिलाफ अगर खबर लिखेगा, दिखाएगा, उसको जो है मतलब किसी भी तरह की कार्रवाई के लिए सामना करने के लिए तैयार रहना चाहिए। और वो जो कार्य कर रहे हैं वो एक्चुअल में लोकतंत्र के लिए बहुत बड़ा खतरा है।
But, you know, to me this is even more problematic in a sense that, you know, there are cases of human rights violations that are being suppressed. You know, in a specific instance that's reported today, a Maoist, a woman who's been branded by a Maoist, and there's a police case against her. That story is reported even before her initial interrogation takes place, so she's recorded her testimony in front of a magistrate. But that story is out and touted as a big success for the Chhattisgarh government, for the police, and then, you know, you have someone putting a rate card down on the table.
Yeah, but I think one of the things that I do support, which doesn't have too much of popularity, but I do support an ethical journalist exam and a licensing, just like you are to practice. You get to practice at bar, and if you cross the line, you are suspended as a journalist or barred completely, depending. I think there is a requirement for that, considering the kind of rogue elements that have come in.
You know, I want to make a point here. Why haven't we taken action against any rogue journalist? Sudhir Chaudhary, who's now behind bars, and Sameer Ahluwalia. We forget another person called Prakash Singh, who did this fraudulent sting operation on a Delhi school teacher called Uma Khurana. You know who employed him after he was out on bail? No prizes for guessing, Naveen Jindal. I say it with full responsibility on your channel, okay? He's perhaps no longer with them. But what I'm trying to say, remember, today is also a day where 11 individuals were convicted in the Guwahati molestation case. Remember that. But what is interesting is that the person who was the camera person of the local television channel, Gaurav Jyoti reporter, who kept on shooting her, you know, and he justified his action by saying it's because of the fact that I kept shooting that the culprits were identified. But he kept shooting, and that video was put on YouTube without concealing the identity of the victim. But he has not been convicted. He has got.
So, are you saying that
video? But I think both of you, I'll have to recall this incident. When this case came to us, to Editors Association, we immediately set up a three-member committee to go into this Sudhir Chaudhary, culpability of the editor, just professional culpability, not criminal culpability. And we decided Sudhir Chaudhary was removed from primary membership of the association. It had sent across a very strong message that there is a zero tolerance against these activities.
But do you believe that there was a difference between that case in any way and this one? Because there was that entire extortion element there.
That was different. It was, extortion is something different. In comparison to this Chhattisgarh case, there is a sea of difference. So you must appreciate.
Would you agree?
1 minute.
Are we just going down a slippery slope here when we're talking about
more of this? In Mangalore, you have a case where the journalist who films it is arrested. In the case in Delhi, you have so-called representatives of India TV and APP News who does a sting operation on a businessman using commercial sex workers. I mean, the problem is, where does it all end? I mean, at the end of the day, there are, I believe, sincere, honest, decent people in journalism, including N.K. Singh, including Madhvendra, and I may not agree with all this. I may not agree with their views, but all of us are being today tarnished with the same brush because of the illegal, unethical activities of that corrupt few, and unfortunately, that's what the large sections of the public believe. All journalists are up for sale.
Yes, there is a
palpable
region.
And you have to ask the question that why has no action been taken against all the reports that have come out in paid news? And they come out from a film made by the Public Broadcasting Service, Paranjoy's various articles and what he did for the Press Council. No action has been taken against anyone. And it is what I said before, it is the culture of the country. Today's man is just, the new religion is greed. The politicians are doing it, the businessmen are doing it.